Happy Monday. Today we're talking all about 7 ways, seven, yes, seven, to measure your success on LinkedIn. So, more on that in a minute. How was your weekend? I have been earmarking my weekends for extra study time and ensuring that I can keep up with my study course load and run the business, serve my clients, bring on new prospects, all of that good stuff. And that means I get to look forward to reading my psychology and English textbooks on Saturday and Sunday. So, yes, I am that really weird person on the Stairmaster at the gym doing my zone 2 cardio while attempting to highlight my digital textbook with sweaty hands. So, if you have a solution for that, let me know. In the meantime, I'm just going to bring an extra towel and, try to wipe off the hands and try to highlight, or maybe even trying the Apple Pencil with the iPad. So, still experimenting there, but I'm open to ideas. Now it is time for Mondays with Mindy. This is the weekly show on Mondays, you guessed it, where I talk about all things LinkedIn pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I call the 3 Ps of LinkedIn. So, do you have questions about LinkedIn that you want me to answer? Be sure to like this post, whether you're watching live or from the replay. Leave your questions below because I will answer them. I answer everybody's question. If I don't answer your question, you can ping me, DM me. I will see it there. And I also like to use them as fodder for future episodes. So if there's a question you'd really like me to dive deep into, make sure to send me a message. Say, hey, Mindy, just raising my hand and let you know what I want you to talk about. Can you please do an episode? And I will ping you. I will let you know when your episode airs. So that'll be fun. So let's get to today's topic. How do you measure your return on investment on LinkedIn? Now, some people don't like measuring. So, who has the time to measure their LinkedIn activity? I don't know about you, but I don't always really enjoy looking at the numbers. Sometimes I'm in the mood, but a lot of times I'm like, I'm just going to go with my gut. But when it comes to LinkedIn, should you simply wing it? Well, you could. But if you're being strategic about how and why you're using LinkedIn, you might want to check your numbers occasionally. What could happen if you don't? You're like, okay, well, Mindy, I hear you, but I really don't want to. So convince me otherwise. So if you don't check your numbers on a regular basis, you may go all in on LinkedIn and have nothing to show for it, which is very frustrating. I talk to a lot of people. Many people who book one on ones with me have this exact problem saying, Mindy, I'm trying all the things, but I must not be doing something right. Let's crack the nut. Let's figure out what's going on. You could also see that something is working, but you don't know what is working exactly or how to replicate that success, which is really, really important on LinkedIn. You may have no idea what good sales and metrics and benchmarks and marketing stuff, what those numbers even are for LinkedIn. So you're like, yeah, Minnie, please tell me exactly what I should be shooting for here. You might not even know you could track your personal LinkedIn profile performance numbers. So if you're like many people I talk to, they're like, wait, there's numbers. I can actually look at those. Yes, there are. So we are going to talk about some very important, 7 important metrics to help you dial in your LinkedIn profile, what you should pay attention to, which measurement tools to use, and when to adjust your approach on LinkedIn accordingly. So you can stop rolling the dice. And the best part is it only takes a few minutes per week to do. It doesn't take that long. It's really, really simple. So, aloha, hello there. For those who don't know me, my name is Mindy Rosser. I am the founder of Mindy Rosser Marketing, and I have a group program called the LinkedIn Accelerator for those who want to go from 0 to 60 on LinkedIn with their profile and their network. We already wrapped up the first cohort of 2023, but you can get on the wait list for the next cohort. Probably going to be targeting the summer. Depends on my schedule, travel, and all that good stuff, but most likely going to be in the summer. If not, it will be the early fall. So I will share the link at the end of this live if you are interested. You can also just DM me, say, Mindy, I want to get on the wait list. How do I do that? I help business leaders who feel they are the best kept secret in their industry to become that go to visible expert in their niche so they can get that next opportunity, grow their business, and scale their impact. In this live, we're going to talk about why not paying attention to the right sales and marketing metrics on LinkedIn is causing you to waste your time and waste your money throwing spaghetti at the LinkedIn wall, and how you can actually figure out what is working or not working for you on LinkedIn in just 3 to 5 minutes per week. Yes, 3 to 5 minutes per week, because I'm going to show you what the numbers are. I'm going to show you what they actually mean and what to do if one of them is too high, too low, in the middle. So we are going to go into detail today. It's going to be fun. You may want to bookmark this episode too if you want to reference it the next time you check your numbers. So go ahead and like this post, whether you're live or watching from the replay, to give it some social love. All right, so I'm taking a psychological research class this semester. Did I mention my psychology textbook? And we were just having an engaging discussion in class about the importance of setting appropriate parameters when you are running experiments. So you have all these different types of experiments that you can run. You can do research, you can do correlational research, you can do descriptive, there's case studies, there's all these different types. But when you're approaching an experiment, so an experiment, for those of you who don't know, an experiment is cause and effect. Okay. So this causes that. Usually that's what people are doing when they're running experiments. You are looking to manipulate an independent variable. Okay. Basically the cause. And then you measure the dependent variable, which is the effect. So in terms, cause and effect. You don't start manipulating a bunch of variables and hope you get the result that you want, because you're just kind of confusing the data and nobody really knows what's going on. So you don't know exactly which of those variables actually caused the change, if anything changed at all. So the same thing with LinkedIn. When you're approaching LinkedIn, put your researcher hat on. Say, okay, I'm going to approach LinkedIn like an experiment, which is what I always tell people. It's an experiment. You are always running experiments, but you are running experiments one at a time, not all of them all at the same time. So instead, too many people jump into LinkedIn head first. They start Googling all sorts of tips and tricks from LinkedIn gurus. You may be watching this video hoping I give you some like tip and trick and you're going to go implement it. So with all of that enthusiasm, a lot of times it's easy to throw together a strategy or a mismatch of tactics that promise to generate thousands of inbound leads, or turn your LinkedIn profile into a prospecting machine having 30 sales calls per month. And wait, how many of you actually want to have 30 sales calls per month if you're not in business development? Anyhow, with all of that LinkedIn activity, it's easy to get caught up in the vanity metrics and not really know what's working for you on LinkedIn. So you generate all of this noise on LinkedIn, all of this activity, but does that actually turn into tangible business for you? Can you point to LinkedIn and say, I closed this client as a result of my LinkedIn activity? That's really what it boils down to. Is it helping you to scale your impact? Can you look at LinkedIn and say, okay, because I have done this activity or these, select activities that are similar enough, I have grown my audience by this number. If you can do that, fantastic. Then you are already on the right track. To grow your LinkedIn network strategically with the right people is critical. That does make a really big difference. But how are you going about it? Are you just throwing a bunch of things together and hoping for the best and just kind of have to keep doing all of those things because you're not sure what is working, but it's working well enough? If that's you, today is going to help you because we're going to get into all those metrics. So you don't want to be spinning your wheels on LinkedIn, hoping for the best. That's what most people do, but you are not most people. We've all heard the phrase, you cannot improve what you are not measuring. This applies to LinkedIn too. So looking at your numbers is not a time suck, and it should not be a time suck. Did you know that savvy LinkedIn users, whom you all admire, the ones that have those beautiful networks or that rave about all those connections turning into opportunities, they actually don't spend a lot of time looking at their numbers, but they do look at their numbers. Why do they not spend a ton of time? Because they know which numbers matter most to them and which metrics actually move the needle for their business. They know exactly what these numbers are. They understand which levers to pull to change the numbers. They use a nifty tool to break down all the data for them in layman's terms. So there's not really a secret to the numbers or how to track them. It's more a process of building it into a workflow once you understand which metrics you should track. Okay. So once you understand the metrics, you know what they are, why they move up or down, then you know which ones map to your objectives for LinkedIn. So it sounds kind of simple, right? I hope it sounds simple. This is not difficult. This is not rocket science. This is just simple numbers that will affect your business in a positive or a negative way or a neutral way. So we're going to talk about those 7 important LinkedIn numbers to track. I'm also going to share my screen. So what are the 7 metrics that you should be tracking for your personal profile? All right. I'm going to pull up Shield, which is just like the word Shield, SHIELD app.ai. If you can Google it, if you're curious and you want to check it out for yourself, this is the secret weapon when it comes to a lot of numbers. For those of you who don't like looking at numbers or you feel like tracking them in a spreadsheet is kind of wonky and you don't like looking at spreadsheets, then Shield may be a really good tool for you. I am not giving you a discount in this. I do have a discount code if you want to DM me and ask for a referral code. But this is really not about a pitch for Shield. It's just showing you that there are other ways to look at the data versus just in LinkedIn or putting your own numbers in a spreadsheet. So Shield does not go against any rules inside the LinkedIn user agreement. It's safe, it's not spammy, it doesn't cause any issues in using LinkedIn because it's not pushing anything to LinkedIn. It's literally just collecting the data and crunching all the numbers for you. All right, so number one, what numbers should you be paying attention to? And let me share my screen so we can look at it. First is LinkedIn profile views. Okay, so when it comes to LinkedIn profile views, this is a marketing metric. What it is, your views are the total number of views your LinkedIn profile has received in a specific time period. It's not referring to views of your content here. I'm talking about your profile views. How many people are actually going to your LinkedIn profile and looking at your profile? That is really, really important. It's not just about people seeing your content out and about and interacting. It's about people actually being interested enough to go to your profile, check you out. So this means people have not only seen something of yours in their LinkedIn newsfeed, they have actually looked at your profile. They took an extra step. That is huge. So, too many people assume this is a vanity metric, but it is not. What this is telling you, if this number is consistent, doesn't have to be going up all the time, but if it's relatively consistent or it is going up, it's telling you that your keywords, your posts, your profile are getting attention. They are piquing interest and getting people to learn more. This is good news for you. So, if this number is going down, you may have just switched something on your LinkedIn profile, or you simply are not getting the right people to pay attention. So, how would you fix this? Try looking at your LinkedIn profile headline. We talked about this, I think it was a week or two ago on Mondays with Mindi. So, see my video for how to fix your LinkedIn profile in 5 minutes. I think it was 2 weeks ago. You can dive deeper with a paid LinkedIn account to see who is actually viewing your profile. But watching this number is a really good idea. So pay attention to your views. Are they relatively consistent? Are they going up or down? Even if you have a free account, you can still see this inside of your LinkedIn account. Okay. So pay attention. Pay attention. LinkedIn profile views, very important. This is usually where I start when people come and talk to me and they say, Mindy, I'm not sure what to do about my profile, or I want to start posting content, or I want to start reaching out. I said, let's look at your views. As like, pull up your profile, let's take a look and see what's going on here. All right, so that's the number you see. That's like 14,706. This is a cumulative view of a couple of clients. So you can see the views are pretty high for that time period. Okay, so engagement rate. All right, so engagement rate, number two. So you can see that it's right above where you can see on the screen where it says number two engagement rate. Right above that says 2.7%. Okay, so what this is, your engagement rate is calculated as the views to like, comments, share. So any type of engagement with your post ratio for a specific period of time. So in a nutshell, this tells you how people are engaging with your posts on LinkedIn. It's one of the most important marketing metrics, marketing, not sales, marketing metrics to pay attention to from that perspective. So a good industry benchmark to shoot for is between 1 to 3% here. Now, if you have a very large network, if you have, 10,000 plus people in your network, you're probably going to be closer to a 1% engagement rate here. Why? Because this is dependent on the size of your network. So if you have a very small but engaged network, you may see numbers as high as 10%, which is pretty good. Very, very good. 5 to 10%. So it just depends on the size of your network. So keep in mind, if you have a large network, this number may be smaller. If you have a small but mighty network, this number may be very, very good and be in that 5 to 10% range. So mine is definitely outside that range because I am on that smaller, more strategic network. And most of the people in my network are pretty engaged with my own content. So I see this number usually hovering around the 3 to 5% range, so not too shabby. Okay. So what this is telling you, whether or not your content is valuable to your LinkedIn audience and connections, is your content worth sharing, liking, commenting, engaging with in some way. All right. So that's a very important metric to pay attention to. Depends on your audience size, what you're going to expect to see in which ranges. Okay. All right. So number three, number of followers. All right, so number of followers is very, very important. And why is that? So you can see the number of followers in here. In the image we're looking at, 17,848. So that's a good number of followers. So what this is how many people are either following you and or connected to you. Okay, so it adds followers, so you have all of your connections are pretty much followers unless they decide to connect with you and unfollow you, which is rare. So just assume that most of your connections are also followers, and then you have people who are just following you that are not actually connected to you, so they just want to follow your content. So it's combining those numbers together, so it totals your followers and your connections. Obviously you want to see this number go up over time, up, 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 unless you are doing some LinkedIn connections cleanup, which a number of people I've talked to have been thinking about doing this recently. So you may see this number go down initially, but as soon as you do the cleanup, this number will continue to go up. It's very hard to make your connections go away. You'd really have to make a lot of people angry for them to even figure out how to remove you as a connection. So you can just assume if you're not doing anything, it's going to stay the same. If you are doing stuff on LinkedIn and you are connecting with people, this number will go up either at a faster rate or at a slower pace. So when you continue to post valuable content and strategically build your LinkedIn network, this number will organically grow over time. You don't really have to stress out about it, but what you can do is continue to create good content, engage with people, interact in your DMs. All of this activity will contribute to a healthy number of followers. So, what is the number of followers telling you? How many people are in your LinkedIn audience and likely to see your post in their feed? Remember, if you don't know this already, when you publish a piece of content to LinkedIn, what happens? Who actually sees that post? It's not everybody in the LinkedIn sphere. They technically can find it, but the people that it is served to, that it actually appears in their newsfeed, those people are either connected to you or following you. So keep that in mind. That's why you have to increase your followers over time, increase your connections over time, because you want your influence to grow over time. So most of these will likely be LinkedIn connections, unless you get into the influencer range with your network size, where that proportion of a percentage of followers to connections may go much different than it is right now. So if you become an influencer, for example, you may have 10,000 connections and you may have 50, 60,000 followers, because LinkedIn will cap the number of connections that you can have. Okay. So keep growing your LinkedIn network with the right people. You cannot go wrong here. All right. So next metric, number four, number of new connections. So I don't think we can see connections on this one. I don't think this view shows us the number of new connections. I'm going to stop sharing now. You actually have to log into your LinkedIn account to see that. It's not showing up on my screen in Shield. So it's very, very easy to see. Just go to your profile. At the very top, it'll show you the number of connections or followers that you have in your network. Just click that. You can see everybody there. So what this is how many people did you connect with on LinkedIn within a certain time frame, which includes both inbound, so received, and outbound, sent by you, connection invitations. This should be trending upward. Again, this is very, very similar to followers, except followers includes everybody that may be following you but not connected to you. You also need to increase your connections. Even if you're an influencer, you still need to increase your connections. Connections allow you to have those two-way conversations, which is where the magic happens on LinkedIn. For those of you who are into list building or growing an audience, this is how it's done on LinkedIn. You build your connections. You don't just try to attract followers. You really are intentional about who you're sending connection requests to, who's accepting those, and getting into back and forth conversations. What this is telling you, the number of new connections, how many people you are accepting connections from, plus how many people you are sending connections to that are accepting your connection. Okay, so it's a combination of those two things. A good rule of thumb here, if you are taking a strategic approach to your LinkedIn network, Try adding about 10 to 20 people to your network per week. Not all of them are going to accept. A good acceptance rate, which we'll talk about shortly. I'll tell you what that is, but I want to hold off on that. But not everyone's going to accept. So make sure that you are sending at least 10 to 20, and then you'll probably have 5 to 10 to 15 people accepting your connections every single week. So that brings us to connection acceptance rate. This is critical. And this you cannot find anywhere. You can't go to LinkedIn and say, LinkedIn, tell me what my connection acceptance rate is. You have to manually track this yourself. You have to figure out this number. I like to do this month over month. I get asked this question a lot, like, Mindy, what is this number? How do I track it? So what it is, it's calculated as the connection sent, number of connections sent. So how many connection invitations did you send to the number of connections accepted for a specific time period. So I don't like to do this week over week because the numbers can be skewed. Now, I somewhat track it week over week, but I really look at it in a monthly view. So how many connection invitations did I send last month? How many of those connections were accepted during that month? That gives me my connection acceptance rate. Now, you can get really nitty gritty, and some people do not accept. Like, if you're trying to measure this and you send, to 20 people every week. All right. So I sent to, let's say, 80 to 100 people in the past month. All right. So let's just say 100 to make it really easy math. So I sent to 100 people. I had, so let's say, 50 people accept my connection invitation, my connection. So that would be a 50% connection acceptance rate. Now, there are going to be people who don't see it right away, who accept, 3 weeks later. So they're going to bleed into the next month. Don't get that nitpicky. Okay. If you are sending connections every single month, just measure it month over month. Like, how many accepted over time. It's going to kind of balance itself out. So don't get so stuck in the ways that you're like, but this person accepted. I sent it in this month and they accepted in a different month. Okay. All right. We get that. Then measure over a longer period of time if you would like. You're still going to run into that issue. Okay. So just for those of you who are nitty gritty, that question does come up and I've been asked it many times. So I wanted to address that here. So in other words, you send 100 connections in a month, 60, let's give another example, 100 in a month, 60 of them are accepted. You have a 60% connection acceptance rate. All right. So for most people who are actively prospecting, this rate can vary dramatically. So just because I shot out some examples of 50 and 60% connection acceptance rate, don't expect you to get that same number, especially if you're prospecting. Okay. So that's something I really want to add a caveat here. If you are consistently getting below 25% connection acceptance rate in an industry that is pretty active on LinkedIn. So in other words, your people are on LinkedIn, you think it, they're like, they're active, they're there. I know they're checking their profile somewhat. Then you may need to rethink your connection invitation. So active industry, people on LinkedIn, you are prospecting. So, this is a really kind of a cold message. It's well written, but it is cold. Expect to have 25%. 25% is pretty good. If you're getting below that number, that's okay. You can play with it. Ideally, I like to see around 30 to 40%. For my clients, but it really depends on the industry, the people that we're reaching out to, what level. If you're reaching out to C-level executives, that's going to be more challenging than reaching out to manager level. So keep that in mind as well. It gets more difficult the higher up the totem pole you get. So those who are simply getting connected and growing their network with non-prospects, around 50 to 75% connection acceptance rate is good. And that's because you have some type of connection to them. You're part of a community. You share something in common with them, and you are referencing that in your connection invitation. So what is your connection acceptance rate telling you? It's telling you how good your connection request is. So how good, how compelling is your connection request? If we want to go a little deeper here, how good is your LinkedIn headline? Because your headline and your connection request are together. So that's what people see when they're looking to determine, should I say yes or no to your your connection message? Do you look like a spammer? Are you about to pitch me? If your connection invitation has any sense of pitch in it whatsoever, expect that connection acceptance rate to go down. So make sure that you are writing these very thoughtfully. You can use a template, but make sure you're personalizing the template. Ideally, I like to see stuff that is much more personalized than like a really template, unless you're asking a question. If you ask a really good question, That can help you out a lot if you want to use a template and you want to get higher percentage of connections accepted. Okay. I know we spent a lot of time there. That's because that metric is so, so, so important. That is how I determine the success of a program month over month when I'm working with clients. That's where it starts. Now, we do need to make sure those are the right people and they're going all the way through the funnel, but connection acceptance rate is a very important marker. All right. So, connection to conversion rate, getting further down the funnel. What is this? This is a sales metric. What it is, it's calculated as the number of connections who agree to have a conversation with you or they convert to whatever your ask is. So if you don't want them to have a conversation with you, but maybe you want them to visit and attend a webinar, maybe you want them to go to a workshop, maybe you want them to attend an event, maybe you want them to just simply have a back and forth conversation with you in the DMs. This can vary depending on what your LinkedIn connection strategy is. For example, most of my clients are looking to have a conversation. Most of them are like, Mindy, I want calls. I want you to get me on the phone on a Zoom with my potential prospects. As soon as I can talk to them, we can make magic happen. Okay, great. So my goal is to help them figure out the best way to get into a conversation with their ideal prospects, collaborators, partners, whatever group that may be. This will hopefully lead to new business opportunities for them. So others are simply asking a question. So instead of like hopping on a call, they will ask a question. That's what I do. If you want to know what I do, if you've connected with me, go look in your connection and see how I started the conversation. If you didn't send me the connection first, I likely asked a question. So if you're trying to get the new connection engaged in a two-way conversation that is more along the lines of getting to know you and not pitching them right off the bat, then a good connection to conversion rate is around 40%. And some of you may say, whoa, that's high. Some of you may say, wow, that seems really low. So this means that 40% of the new connections are agreeing to a conversation or taking action on whatever your conversion event is. All right. So if it's just to get into a back and forth DM, okay, you probably will be able to hit that 40 to 50 to 60% pretty well. So if you are trying to get them on a call, that is a lot harder to hit that number. You have to be very, very thoughtful in how you approach and shape the conversation. So what this is telling you is how well aligned your messaging is with your target audience and their wants, needs, and desires. So some of you can hit this. This is something I come up with a lot when I talk with people. They're like, well, Mindy, my connection acceptance rate is like 75%. I'm like, all right, well, what happens after that? Like, do you get into conversations? They're like, well, I actually don't put anything in the connection invitation. And so lots of people will accept, but then nothing happens with the conversation. I said, that's the whole point. It's better to have a lower connection acceptance rate and have a higher connection to conversion rate. Okay. So that's what I go for. I'm like, I may not have as many people accept, but because I set a precedent in my connection invitation saying this is why I'm reaching out and I'm adding context, then people are more willing to talk to me. I'm not striking up a cold conversation with the new connection who is bracing for the pitch. Okay. So if what your ask is in this message, like if you are sending a message hoping that these people convert, hop on a call with you, do whatever it is you want them to do, if what your ask is seems like a no brainer to them or it's obviously advantageous, they will be more likely to convert. I mean, it's not rocket science here. Make it compelling, make it interesting, and they're more likely to say yes. All right. And our final number of opportunities. Okay. Opportunities. If you are a salesperson, business development, this is very, very important. If you are not familiar with this term, this just means how many people are actually prospective prospects, clients, want to do business with, partners, whatever group you're trying to build right now. Number of opportunities. How many of these are you getting from LinkedIn? What it is, how many sales opportunities did you identify on LinkedIn from new connections or old connections that resurfaced during a given time period? It's really good to measure this, I would say month over month, but ideally probably quarter over quarter because this, like every single quarter is going to be a little bit different. And then you can also measure, quarter, quarter Q1 of this year versus Q1 of last year. That will give you a more accurate sense. The clients that I work with over long periods of time like that, it's really nice because there are certain seasons and certain months where we can look back in time and say, oh, July is always a really quiet month because people are traveling. Or December is usually really active at the beginning of December and then quiet because the holidays are coming. So this is really important information for you to know. If you are an entrepreneur, business owner, consultant, you need to have consistent opportunities in your pipeline at specific times of the year when you are ready to serve them. So make sure that you have a steady flow of opportunities. This will ensure that you don't have that moment where you're like, oh my God, I just finished up all my projects and I have nobody ready to go and start a new project. Opportunities. This is the key. Steady flow of opportunities. It really is that simple. So if you are not seeing opportunities on a regular basis, at least monthly or quarterly, on LinkedIn, something is off. You need to figure out exactly what it is. I'm happy to help you if you ever need to troubleshoot. But when you have a healthy LinkedIn program and strategic network, you can expect both inbound and outbound opportunities to surface every single month. This is healthy pipeline. This is what we're going for when it comes to building a healthy business, whether it's a small, medium sized business, large business, every single business needs opportunities. So, what this number is telling you, whether or not you're using LinkedIn effectively for business, if you are not being able to point to LinkedIn and say, I got this many opportunities or that opportunity from LinkedIn, then you are not using LinkedIn to its fullest potential. This is what you need to evaluate. You need to make sure that if LinkedIn is part of your strategy to generating new business, that it is actually generating new business. Number of opportunities will tell you that. So if you want more opportunities, you need to be doing the right combination of things on LinkedIn. Sometimes it can be tricky. Like I talked about earlier, it can be tricky to figure out which tactic will actually work. We talked about being very careful earlier in this live about not just throwing together a mismatch of all kinds of different tactics. You really want to be thoughtful and strategic about which things you do next, which will actually lead you to the number that you want. So, getting some advice from an experienced LinkedIn sales and marketing expert or just a friend, if you have a friend that is actually using LinkedIn very well, buy them coffee, have a conversation, talk to them, see what they're doing, and see if that could help you get all of these metrics and numbers in order. So I will actually follow the link because there will be a link below this where I will sum up all 7 of these numbers so you can just reference them moving forward and you will be able to use this tool moving forward on LinkedIn. Because if you cannot measure what you're doing, you're not going to know what's working and how to replicate it. All right. So there you have it. My top 7 metrics to pay attention to on LinkedIn to know if your sales and marketing program is working or not and how to fix it. I think that's the big thing is like, well, how do I fix it? Like what could be going wrong here and how do I make it work better? So how are you doing? Did you see areas that could be improved where you pat yourself on the back because you're like, Mindy, my connection acceptance rate is high, or I'm really stoked with the number of people that are engaging with my content. So, when's the next time you're going to look at your metrics? I recommend that you put it in your calendar. So I like to do my metrics on Fridays because it's kind of like the end of the week and my head's in the space, or Mondays. Mondays can also be a really good day because you're kind of coming to it fresh. It's like, okay, just knock it out, but set a recurring task to check your metrics, whichever ones you're going to check. Doesn't have to be all 7 that I mentioned today. Whichever ones you're going to check, make sure you're checking those weekly. If you're struggling to figure out what to do next, that's okay. Just post a question below, shoot me a direct message to discuss. I'm happy to nerd out on this stuff. As you can tell, I really like talking about it. And if you want to go deeper with your marketing analytics, I do recommend that tool. If you like that tool I showed today, it's called shieldapp.ai. That will help you get the LinkedIn metrics in that pretty little dashboard, and you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is hook up your LinkedIn profile to the tool. I also have my own nerdy spreadsheet. Let me put that link up there. If you want to see my spreadsheet, this is what I use for my clients. So if you work with me at some point in the future, you will likely see this spreadsheet. And this will help you keep track of your sales and marketing metrics, but it is a Google Sheet. So you can actually just view it, make a copy, download it in Excel, whatever tool you like to use. And you don't have to sign up for a tool like Shield, but you will have to manually plug in your numbers. Okay. So I will see you all next week on Mondays with Mindy. Feel free to leave questions or comments below. My inbox is always open. If you want to message me directly, hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And that's it for today. Bye for now.